Scott, it's an incredible opportunity that I thought I'd never have to actually say hi to you. I I'm so old. I've started reading Dilbert in the newspapers, many many years ago, and followed it through there, and then followed you online. And I think a few things, and I want to share a couple things with you. I think you and Trump and Elon did more for changing and saving this country than probably any other three individuals that I can possibly name.
Really?
Your getting canceled and stepping out and starting to speak the truth felt like it began to open the door for the rest of the world to say it's okay to speak truth. And I appreciate that so much. I mean, and I always wanted to say thank you. And I've typed that online. It's like if I had the opportunity to say thank you one day, I'd love to do that. And just this came up this morning. It could be the best gift I've ever been given. Um,
In other, in
I
other in other words, affirmations worked.
Scott, it's an
Just an
incredible
update on
opportunity
me.
that I thought I'd never have
You
to
can
actually
tell I'm
say
getting
hi to
weaker and
you.
weaker. I've been told that the way I'll know how much time I have left, I'm way past my expiration. Too soon.
Too soon.
I love you all.
To Scott, a sip to Scott.
I can't lift my cup. Go ahead.
Unfortunately, this isn't good news, but he's not with us right anymore. I'm going to try to get through this. He has a final message that he wanted to say, so I'm going to try to read it. If you are reading this, things did not go well for me. I have a few things to say before I go. My body failed before my brain. I am of sound mind as I write this January 1st, 2026. Many of my Christian friends have asked me to find Jesus before I go. I'm not a believer, but I have to admit the risk reward calculation for doing so looks so attractive to me. So here I go. I accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior and look forward to spending an eternity with him.
Wow. What's going on, guys? Hope everybody's had a great day. This is going to be a little bit different tonight. We lost Scott Adams. Man, I'm going to try to get through this one. This is, he's, as you guys know, I've talked about Scott a lot. I've admired him from afar, and from afar, he's mentored me. I've never met him in person. And yet, he might be, out of all the people in my life who I've never met in person, the person who impacted me the most. And for what he did for our movement, for what he did for just my life personally. I knew of Scott way before he was in MAGA, not just as Dilbert, but as the success book writer. I have his book right here. It's one of the two books in my life other than the Bible and theological books that I always tell people they have to read to change their life. And anyways, he went away today, and it was shocking. And every time I get into it, it makes me emotional. And so I thought, there's few men in my life. My father, there's a few other men who've mentored me personally, but from afar, nobody like him in my life. And so I thought the best way to honor him tonight was to go through why I think he was one of the most important people of the last decade, to honor him, and then also share some of the things that he gave to change my life and the lives of countless others. Scott, the outpouring today is insane. It's very clear Scott was different. He touched so many lives from afar, and I think it's because he made himself so available. So many people who are successful, stars, rich, whatever, they're always so over there. But Scott sat down day after day for years and years and years and sat and talked to us the way I talk to you guys, reading the chat, going through it, processing. and almost everybody who was a big fan of his, at least at some point, got to have some kind of connection with him through X or through YouTube, Rumble. And honestly, it's like he's just so kind and patient. And I love that it says that he accepted Jesus at the end. I can't personally vouch for him on a personal level where his heart was in that. Scott was an interesting cat, but I have a hard time believing he's not in a better place based on just how things ended there. But anyways, regardless, what he did here was impactful beyond most lives. And so I think tonight the best thing to do is to honor a great man. It's a good day for it. There's not a lot of other news, so we're going to do that tonight. I'm going to take you guys through a lot of Scott. Some of you don't know him the way I do, at least haven't been touched by him the way I do, and I hope maybe you get the chance to experience that a little bit tonight as we share some of the memories and some of the reasons why he was so important. I mean, this is a man who such a big deal that the President Trump called him out personally today. Sadly, the great influencer Scott Adams passed away. He was a fantastic guy who liked and respected me when it wasn't fashionable to do so. He bravely fought a long battle against a terrible disease. My condolences go out to his family, all his many friends and listeners. He'll be truly missed. God bless you, Scott. What Scott showed such bravery in his life, a man who put his whole career on the line by calling out positives about Trump before it was fashionable to do so. Scott was beloved by liberals, by the left, by especially the tech bros because of Dilbert. He's a Californian. He had some liberal views, and he was beloved and wealthy, highly successful. I believe Dilbert was the most successful comic strip of the 90s, made millions and millions, and he put it all on the line in order to be honest and straightforward, and he saw stuff in Trump that nobody else saw early. He certainly helped me understand Trump from an early place. And here's one of the first clips from 2015 of Scott early on catching Trump and understanding Trump far before most everybody else did.
Just an update on me. You can tell I'm getting weaker and weaker.
I apologize. That's the wrong one. Just give me a second here, guys. I'm sorry. I apparently loaded up the wrong one.
Just an update on me. You can tell I'm getting weaker and weaker. I've been told.
People in the world, living people, who are masters of persuasion. They've got a linguistic gift for influencing people, and they're using actual technique. What I saw in Trump was someone who was highly trained, and that a lot of the things that the media were reporting as sort of random insults and bluster and just Trump being Trump looked to me like a lot of deep technique that I recognize from the fields of hypnosis and persuasion. So let me give you a few examples of the technique that Trump uses. There's something that I call the linguistic kill shot. And what that is a engineered set of words that essentially changes an argument or ends it so decisively. I call it a kill shot. So one of the ones that Donald Trump used was when he referred to Jeb Bush being a low energy guy.
Very, very low energy. So low energy that every time you watch him, you fall asleep.
Donald, you cannot take more energy tonight. I like that.
Or when he referred to Carly Fiorina as a robot.
Like a robot. Ba, 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 like a robot.
Or Carson as nice.
Ben is a nice man. He's actually a really nice guy.
All of these have the same quality. They're words you haven't heard in the political realm before, so they're sort of virginal words that he can use the way he wants. They don't have a lot of baggage with them, but they also perfectly fit what you are already thinking about these people. They weren't random insults, and once you hear it, you can never get it out of your mind. That's how powerful it is.
So good. Such good stuff. And if you guys ever want more on that, you should read the book Win Bigly, where he talks about persuasion and how Trump won the election and what Scott saw early on. When Scott started doing that, by the way, guys, if you're new, if you're just now watching, I apologize. This show's going to be different tonight. And so if it's just not for you, I understand. That's okay. It's not what I usually do. I'm not going to just go through the news today. Tonight, we're honoring a great man. We're honoring a great man. I think one of the most important men of the last decade. As you saw, if you were watching at the beginning, as that man thanking Scott said, that along with Trump and Elon might be one of the most responsible for saving our country. And I actually agree with that. And so for me, I lost one of the most important people today and who I looked at, who I learned from. And so we're honoring him tonight. So tonight's all about Scott Adams. And again, if that's, if that's not your cup of tea, that's okay. But I do encourage you to maybe give it a shot and appreciate this guy, but you don't get many opportunities to celebrate a great person passing. There's so few of them these days, but that's what we're doing tonight, and this is my way of saying thank you for changing my life, Scott. So I know you're up there. So, but anyway, Scott. He being positive about Trump in the beginning obviously cost him a lot. And Ann Coulter shares this today from an old New York Times obituary, where Scott said his support for Mr. Trump in 2016 proved costly. When I decided I would throw away my entire social life to back Trump, and I eventually threw away my entire career, which even before I was canceled, my licensing business and book sales went to almost nothing because I was supporting Trump. So his podcast, I sacrificed everything. I sacrificed my social life. I sacrificed my career. I sacrificed my reputation. I may have sacrificed my health, and I did that because I believed it was worth it. And this isn't a fair quote, because there is a point where Scott says it was worth it. And I played that clip for you many months ago, is when the Israel-Gaza thing happened, and Scott, crying, said it was worth it. And so I see it, Toe. So you say it's a shame he didn't get to see it. You're right, he didn't, but he saw enough. Scott was very happy with what he chose, and Scott's a testament to courage, to doing what's right even when it costs you personally. There's a lot of people doing this behind the scenes right now. He was one of the ones out front. I'm not saying there's not a lot of great people doing a lot of amazing things behind the scenes, but he was a real one. Very few people, as we've seen in this influencer wars, these psyops going on, we can't even trust most of our influencers anymore, but Scott, we could always trust. And again, like he said, he may have even sacrificed his health. He was only 68 years old, despite having good health habits, as he's talked about many times, wealth, prosperity, basically everything lined up to be a healthy person, and yet died. But I can't imagine what the stress of the last few years did to him. The attacks, the constant, losing that career that he worked his whole life for. I just can't imagine what that put him through. And if it is what took his health, then it's even more we owe him our thanks for what he did. And I know like Scott wasn't on the front lines as much. People might not have seen him as obviously fighting, but what Scott did was different. What Scott did was he had so many people just tune into him and listen, and the way he could frame things and explain it, he brought so many people over. I would not be surprised if somewhere between 100,000 and 200,000 people woke up to truth because of Scott Adams. I mean, I think of the impact of that. Because you wake up on your own, 100,000, 200,000 people, and from there, what they do, we're talking an impact of millions just in this movement, just in seeing Trump in a different light and understanding Trump better, which changed so many things. A lot of what we all now 5, 6, 9 years later, the way we all view Trump, and we excuse his, his excesses and the rudeness and stuff, and we actually find it kind of charming and funny now, and all that. A lot of the reframing of Trump's his personality and how to understand him is because of Scott. Like a very large amount. And even if you didn't know Scott, if you're in the MAGA movement, there's actually probably a very strong chance you were impacted by his work without even knowing it, honestly. And you're downstream. And so I just think that's really important to share. Here's Scott himself talking to Jake Tapper about what it cost him, and this is in the early days. It actually got much worse going forward. So I'll let Scott share.
You, because you've been a Trumpologist and also seem in many instances to have supported Donald Trump, you have experienced something of a backlash, even when it comes to speaking engagements. Is that right?
Yeah, so my speaking engagements dried up since I started talking about Trump. They went to 0. That's how many I have on the books right now. But people also came to Amazon and gave me 1-star reviews on my book and said it's because of Trump. And people said they were calling newspapers to get Dilbert kicked out of newspapers, that sort of thing. And now when I go out to try to get funding for my startup, I don't know how hard that's going to be, so my timing might be bad there. But overall, it was also the most fun year I've ever had in my life, and totally worth it. And if I could be part of, letting the public see their options a little more clearly, that's good. And I would say on Veterans Day, if anybody wants to find a way to meet in the middle, donate to a veterans organization. It's the one thing everybody agrees on, and it's about time to look for some common ground now.
A great message at the end there. Scott, thanks so much. Good to see you as always.
Again, just brilliant. At the end there, he changed a lot at the end there. He got more and more as things ramped up. Scott went more and more from the trying to meet in the middle and realized it wasn't possible, but you could see what he was always trying to do. And then I wanted to share also this from Steve Bannon about Scott in regards to this.
As a creator, it was so powerful. And remember,
oh yeah,
they were making so much money. They were making so much money with Scott, and they were making so much money. Their hatred of what he had to say and him personally was taking money out of their own pocket. When they shut, this is what I'm saying, like Mike Lindell, they hate MAGA so much. They hate Trump with a burning passion so much that they will actually hurt themselves economically. Scott got shut down everywhere in every every distribution methodology for a guy who was making them a ton of money. That's how much they hate what he had to say, and they hated him personally, and they were out to destroy him as a symbol of what would happen if you came off the plantation. Mm-hmm. Right? This is what was going to happen to you. This is what was so shocking and so courageous of him. He never backed down, ever. Never backed down. Not once.
Yeah. They hated him so much that even in his death, People magazine today wrote this disgusting headline that disgraced Dilbert creator dies at 68. Disgraced. Yeah, disgrace to these morons, these fools, and you know, a hero to many of us. It just shows you how sick these people are. They killed Charlie, and now they're going to do everything they can to ruin the memory of Scott. Unfortunately, it won't work for them. We have too many memories. Too many of us just love the man too much. But you could see, guys, I mean, listen, I know it's easy to hate the rich. I know it's easy to look down on them. They have things so easy. And there's, you know, I get it. I do. And sometimes, you know, it's like, sometimes you don't, it's like, I don't feel sorry for Scott in that way. But at the same time, you know, when you work hard for something and you are a good person and you got what you deserved, losing all that, having it taken away from you, a lot of that's a big deal. You know, I think of like people who've been stolen from, hundreds of thousands of dollars in the stock market. Well, you know, it's like if you had hundreds of thousands of dollars stolen from you because of somebody disagreeing with you, you still lost that money over a wrong. And so it's just crazy what we saw. But again, I hope you guys see that. I hope you guys see just what he did, what he stood for, the impact he had. And then, to finish it up, not to finish, I'm going to go on a bit longer here, but because of Scott, I want to share some of the things I think were some of like his most impactful, teachings, with his humor, his incredible way of explaining things. And so, I just want to spend the next little bit going through, sharing these things with the world, especially people who might not have seen him before, to see just how special he really was. He was one of a kind. So if you're watching this and you don't know Scott or haven't experienced Scott Adams, you're about to be in for a treat, because it's not just that he fought and stood up when nobody else would in that area, and like the celebrity area, not in the same way. He put it all on the line, helped millions understand. You might be like, how, if you don't know him, how could this guy be so impactful? Well, let me show you some examples. Here's Scott curing laziness. And this is the kind of stuff that started for me changing my life. This is the kind of stuff that got me into Scott way before Trump. I got his book that really started impacting my life. That was the first time I'd been exposed to Scott Adams in 2014. And then he started blogging about Trump in 2016. And because of the book and how much it impacted my life, I started watching or reading his blog and learning all this way of viewing Trump that kind of blew my mind, to be completely honest with you. But this is the genius of this man. And so I want to share some examples, some of his highlights of his genius and how he really reached people.
What if laziness is a habit of thinking about the cost of things or the effort instead of thinking about the payoff? I'm going to say it again to get a few more heads to explode. What if laziness is nothing but a habit of thinking about the effort instead of thinking about the outcome? What if you could reverse laziness by simply developing a habit of thinking more about the, let's say, the delicious food that you would like to enjoy instead of how long it would take you to get up and go get it? But the real question is, if you were to test this at home and try to see if you can think more about the good outcome and less about the work, would you get it done? Why is it that people have a second child? Why does a woman who goes through this awful, awful childbirth have a second child? Don't they always say the same thing? If I remembered how bad this was, I wouldn't do it again. Right? So the not thinking about the effort is vital to actually the survival of humanity. If we focused on how hard it was to have a baby, you just wouldn't do it, or you do too little of it. But if you focus on how awesome it would be to have a family, well, there you go. You're going to go through the pain because you've already committed. Am I ambitious, or do I simply have a thinking habit which produces dopamine because I'm thinking about the positive outcome? And is the dopamine the thing that gets me up and moving? And when you're observing me, you say, how the hell do you get so much done? And how do I do it? I think it's just this. When I think of all the things I do, I think about them in terms of their benefits. So here's your tip. It's going to change some of your lives. Think about the positive, not about the work, and see what that does to you.
It seems so simple, right? I mean, I just love that's Scott through and through. Always simple. Just Just so good. And he did this on issues like this that were so, so up in arms, so controversial. This is how he framed how anti-vaxxers won the vaccine argument. And this is again, one of my favorites.
Completely. Right. Having said as clearly as possible that the anti-vax people seem to be the winners, I want you to hear that clearly. The anti-vax people appear to be the winners. The anti-vaxxers clearly are the winners at this point, and I think it'll probably stay that way. And I don't want to put any shade on that whatsoever. They came out the best. They have the winning position. The unvaccinated have a current advantage because they feel better. The thing they're not worrying about is what I have to worry about, which is, I wonder if that vaccination 5 years from now, because really the anti-vaxxers, I think, were really just distrustful of big companies and big government. That's never wrong. It's never wrong to distrust government. It's never wrong to distrust big companies, right? So if you just took the position, let's just distrust everything the government did, well, you won. You won. You won completely. I did not end up in the right place. Agree? You would all agree with that, right? I did not end up in the right place. The right place would be natural immunity, no vaccination. You should take victory, and I should take defeat. We can agree on that, right? That my position is now the weakest, and your position has gone from the weakest to the strongest, and that we can just say that's true. The people who didn't get vaxxed are absolutely in the winning position. You win. You win. You are the winners. You are the winners. All right, let me say that part with no ambiguity. You won. You won. All of my fancy analytics got me to a bad place. All of your heuristics, don't trust these guys, it's obvious, totally worked.
So good. So good. The heuristics, man, don't trust them. Don't trust them. Always works. Listen, I'm gonna go through a couple other things, but listen, if you're watching and, if you learned anything from Scott Adams, put it in the chat. I'd love to hear like what your favorite thing was, what, if he impacted you at all, you learned anything from him, admired anything from him. I'd love to know. I'd love to know because I know I'm not the only one. I know I might be the only one on my show and that's okay. I have a very interesting audience of very, people all over the place. And, I know I'm not like, I see like half my usual audience is watching tonight and that's fine. I get it. This isn't for everybody and that's okay. This is for the people who love Scott. This is my way of doing a memorial service for, in a way, that's, for just somebody I deeply feel I wanted to honor. And so, and in doing so, this is, I'm going to play one more clip of Scott. And this is what they call maybe his greatest live stream ever, how to reframe the interface for reality. So I'm going to play some of this one. And then I'm going to go through some of my own personal things that I grabbed that he helped change my life. And hope that, it can, in death and through me and through everybody else sharing today, wherever they're at. And I hope we keep talking about him. I do. I hope his stuff survives longer. I've read hundreds of, self-improvement books, success books, theological books. I'm a reader and I'm always trying to grow, get better. And I got to tell you that this stuff is, his stuff is as simple as it sounds. It's the most profound out of almost anybody else. And I hope his stuff lives on. And so that's why I'm sharing it tonight. As a thank you to Scott, and as a hope that just, some of us can enjoy it before, he just doesn't get thrown to the ash heap of history and forgotten. But, I've buried a lot of my family, a lot of my heroes, which like my father, but yeah, again, this is my way of honoring Scott. And but here's what many people consider to be one of his greatest lessons in a live stream, because it just was so different than how most people think. So here's Scott with the interface for reality.
All right, at long last, the user interface for reality. Some of these things you're going to say, hey, I've heard about those. I've heard about them in your book, Win Bigly. I've heard about them in your book, How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. And I saw a few things in your latest book, Loser Think. And that is where you should go if you want any detail on these, but let me run through them. First, you must accept the frame, at least as a filter, that there could be a subjective reality and that you can manipulate it. Again, you might only be manipulating your own impression of reality, but that's good enough if it predicts well and gets you to a happy place. You should accept that systems work better than goals. People are telling me every day that after reading my book, How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big, they implemented systems and it changed their life. This is one of the biggest buttons on the interface for life. If you don't like where you are and you want to go somewhere else, learn how to build systems for everything from your diet to your career to your social life to fitness, everything. And that's in this book if you want more details. Talent stacking, also from the same book. The idea that if you intelligently add new talents, you become not just a little bit better, but exponentially better, because talents really explode your capability and your options. So this is one of the biggest buttons on the interface to reality. Now, you've seen these before, a few of them, but it's the totality of them that I'm trying to present. You've seen them individually. Affirmations, the idea of writing down or visualizing your goals, seems to be something that gives you the impression that it works. And I say that very carefully. Does it work? Do affirmations change reality? I don't know. But I can tell you that when I've used them, the results I've gotten don't seem like anything could have been natural. I mean, I cured an incurable voice problem. I had ridiculous stock market luck when I used the affirmations. My career, as I told you, is just crazy. And it feels like it works, but I'm not going to tell you it does. Again, you should see these as filters. If it feels like it works, keep doing it. All right, you should know that the mating instinct is the base of pretty much all of your impulses. So if you haven't learned that pretty much everything from the way you talk, present yourself, hold yourself, dress, everything you do is some kind of expression of your mating instinct, whether you like it or not. Everything you show off about, everything that you don't want to show if you have a flaw, pretty much everything you do comes back to wanting to look good and present yourself well for mating purposes. Once you understand that, you start to understand where the buttons are, all right? Because you'll say, oh, that's why that's happening. It's an extension of the mating process. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. You'll see it everywhere. And it's like the veil will come off and you'll start seeing everybody's actions as, wait a minute, why is it everything is compatible with that showing off for mating purposes situation? Here are the other buttons, which are mostly self-explanatory, but freedom is a big thing. People will trade a lot for freedom. You could say, would you like a bad life with freedom or a good life with no freedom? And people will take the bad life with freedom. So if you ever have a chance to create a situation where you can offer someone more freedom, that's very powerful. That's a button. And you should get as much for yourself as you can, and you can use it as a tool to help other people get what they want, because they will trade a lot for freedom. And freedom can come in the form of getting money, that gives you freedom, having a flexible schedule, being in the right kind of social situation, etc. So there's lots of ways to get it. Fear is a motivator. I don't recommend using it unless you're trying to save somebody. You know, you could use fear to keep them from smoking cigarettes, for example, but I wouldn't use this in the evil way. Curiosity is one of the most important and overlooked buttons on the human interface. You can see that authors that are good at it will make you curious at the end of a chapter so that you'll want to keep reading. So building curiosity into things is a really, really important button. You'll see that President Trump does this often because he'll tease things that are coming. He'll say, yes, well, I got an announcement on that, and tomorrow you're going to hear about that, and I think you're going to be really, impressed. When you can stoke somebody's curiosity, you can really shape what they do, and you can shape your environment through curiosity. Very, very powerful. You notice how I use this to get you to come here. Novelty is very important for memory. So you want to make sure that you always inject novelty. It's what triggers memory, because your brain will get bored of the sameness. So you need to trigger memory and attention with novelty. Contrast is a way to get people to move from where they are to where you want them to be. You just say, well, it's much less expensive than this. So contrast is one of the most important buttons. Use contrast often. Hey, you don't want to be this bad. You could be over here. Repetition and simplicity. Our brains are just simple machines. The more you repeat, the more the wiring gets solidified. And if you keep things simple, the brain can process it and deal with it. If it's complicated, your brain has a tendency to just flush it out. Can't deal with it, flush it out. So simplicity is important. The fake because is a form of pseudo-logic. Sometimes you need to get people moving with a fake reason that doesn't even actually pass logical standards, but people don't need logical reasons. Just look at politics. People have incredibly different opinions, and many of them are smart. So if you've got smart people on opposite sides of basically every issue, you can see that they don't need real reasons. We're not a species that operates on real reasons. We'll take a fake reason, we'll take one we made up, we'll take a guess, we'll follow our friends. Once you understand that people don't need real reasons, it frees you. Because if you're locked in a little world at a lower level of awareness where you say, well, I'm not going to convince somebody unless I have a real reason. Sorry, that's not the reality any of us live in. Real reasons are good. I mean, if you have them, use them. But we don't need them. Once you know you don't need them, and that reality can be authored, you're in better shape. Pacing and leading, I've talked about. That's just matching somebody until they feel comfortable with you, and then you can lead them. People can be very influenced by aspirations. This is another way to refer to the high ground maneuver. The high ground maneuver is essentially you challenge somebody to be a better version of themselves. It's sort of the Jesus method, right? You know, it's not tell you you must do something or you'll die. That's fear. Aspiration is, don't you want to be the better version of yourself? Don't you want to be the person who sees the big picture? Very, very important button. Association. You know that any quality of one thing rubs off on the other. If you want somebody to like something, pair it with something else they like already. So the likability of one thing will rub off on another, but also the unlikability. So for example, if you have a TV show, let's say the news, and you have commercials that are really unpleasant, eventually the unpleasantness bleeds into the show, and it would be better if you associated only things that were positive. So learning to associate only with positive things, one of the most important user interface rules of reality. I accidentally put contrast twice. Forget that. Pattern recognition. Once you realize that the humans are not logical machines, we're pattern recognition machines. And so pattern recognition that isn't very good. Pattern recognition is what makes you a racist. Pattern recognition is what makes you an ageist, a sexist, everything bad. Because your patterns are all you have. You're not really a logical person who reasons everything out. Your brain isn't big enough. You wouldn't have enough time. So instead, you default to these little biases, which are determined by patterns. Now, the problem is many of those patterns are fake. Let's say you had met 3 Elbonians in your life, and every one of them slapped you in the face with a glove. The next time you met an Elbonian, you'd be like, oh, no thank you. I don't want to get slapped in the face with a glove. Those last 3 Elbonians were pretty rough on me. But it's only 3 Elbonians. The odds that your pattern is predictive, probably low. So we fall victim to patterns, but you can also use patterns to convince people of things. If you are consistent, people will say, oh, this person's always honest. So patterns are a tool, but they're also our biggest defect, and you have to understand it that way. And then, of course, understanding the brain as a visualization machine is very, very important, because visualization is the biggest, most powerful part of your brain. It's the part that influences you most. And so, one more look at the full board there. And so the idea is that these buttons are the important ones. Visualization, if there's one there that just stands out as being the one that you should sort of focus on the most, visualization would be a good one. Now, these are the buttons for the user interface. I can tell you that almost every day I get a message from somebody who read this book, which was the beginning of this. I had to hide what this was in a practical book because the world wasn't ready to believe that facts don't matter. And the world wasn't ready to believe that you could author your own reality. So I played it a little safe in this one because the world wasn't ready. But if you want to learn about most of these things, they're in there. And then in Win Bigly, because President Trump had ripped apart the nature of the universe, it allowed me to say, now you see it, right? Facts don't matter. Now you see it, that they're just separate worlds and bubbles, and we can live in our bubble and we'll never know the difference. And then, of course, Loser Think tried to just, teach you to think better, because that's always going to be useful. You'll be more effective and you'll have a better handle on the user interface of reality if you can think and argue better. So, this is my lesson. I'm going to keep it on one topic. I hope this was useful. Maybe you could tell me in the comments if you got something out of this. This is the sort of lesson
so good
that...
I used to get teased so much. Now you guys don't do it as much anymore. I think you've gotten to know me over the last 3 years as I've done my show. But the eternal optimism, refusing to be negative, this all comes from him. The affirmations, he didn't say it in the same way, but it's important to frame. It's important to visualize. It's important to speak out what you want. And what he said there about controlling your own reality, how the world wasn't ready for it. So he put it in this book in a user acceptable way. It's brilliant stuff. And I can tell you, it changed my life personally. Scott's user interface for reality, because everything he just said is right. It's right. I mean, there's nuances that weren't presented. I mean, this was 10 minutes. Everybody could poke holes because they're like, oh, what about this? Well, this is 10 minutes where he broke it down. I'm telling you, it's right. I've lived it. I've lived it through the proof of it. And I can tell you, as somebody in marketing, it's absolutely true. When Scott says facts don't matter, he means people make decisions based on their emotions. It's 100% true. Systems versus goals, absolutely. And to show you guys like the things that just changed my life 100%. Here is just some of the things that, you know, I want you guys to take away from Scott, because they changed my life. And one of those is like the systems beats goals every time. If you've read Atomic Habits, you probably learned that as well. But the idea is like, you know, a goal is something where if you set it, every day you don't reach it, you fail. And every day you look at that failure or feel that failure, it can hurt you. Some people are fine with goals. But the better part is saying, you know, what could I do just today that if I did this every day, if I built a system in my life, a habit in my life, I'd get to where I want to go anyways. That's a system over a goal. That's why it's so much better, because every day you just do it and you don't even have to think about your goals anymore. You just get there. You point yourself in the direction you want to go and you say, what would it take to get there? How do people get in that direction? Like if you want to lose weight, you're just like, well, if I just eat healthier, I'll get there. You don't have to think about, oh, I need to lose 50 pounds. No, you start eating better, and in a year or two, you're going to have that 50 pounds gone. It's that simple. And it just makes it so much easier because you're not constantly measuring yourself, but you will see results. And it's genius. I mean, that was one of the things that got me. The talent stack as well. You know, there's that old saying, like, you know, don't be the jack of all trades. Be the best at one thing kind of idea, the specialist. Well, the specialist idea just doesn't work. Most people will never be the best in one area, but you know what you can be? You can be the best at it. If you pick 5 things you're in the top 20% in, then you're unique and you have something special. And Scott would always say, like, I'm not the best writer, but I'm better than 80% of people. I'm not the best cartoonist, but I'm better than 80% of people. I'm not the funniest person, but I'm funnier than 80% of people. Well, you take that talent stack, writing, cartoon, like drawing and jokes, and he creates Dilbert. And he used that talent stack, never the best at one thing, but maybe the best at combining 3 things. And that's a talent stack, and everybody, and the thing is, every single person can do that. And it's just, you know, myself, I'm not the best public speaker in the world, but I'm better than 80-90% of people. You know, I don't put on the best show in the world, the best production in the world, but I know how to run this thing better than 80-90% of people. You know, it's like, you just keep going through that. I'm not the smartest political person in the world or person understanding the news in the world and understanding how things work, but I understand better than 80-90% of people. So I put a show together where I get to do all that. And, you know, that's my talent stack. And it's created something that I love. And I use that in marketing. I use it in my day job. And it's about just finding multiple things you can be good at and then finding out how to combine them. Prioritize personal energy over everything. And this one's really important because, you know, you start burning out, you're just not going to be able to do anything. Fix your diet, exercise, sleep, flexible schedule. High energy turns average effort into wins. Low energy kills even genius plans. It's so good. In other words, take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Failure is data, not defeat. I mean, that we've heard that from 100 million people. Here's one that I thought was so interesting. Affirmations work. You know, as a Christian, I believe our words have power, that our tongue, you know, has the power of life and death in it. That's what the Bible teaches us. And Jesus, you know, so prayer matters. Speaking life matters. Being positive matters. It shifts the atmosphere of your life. That's a biblical concept. Well, Scott, who was an atheist until right before his death, where he accepted Jesus, and I know people are nitpicking how he did it. I don't personally think it matters. I think he's in heaven right now. I think God's a lot more generous than others do, but and a lot more loving and wanting people to get in, like in Peter, where it says he wishes none should perish, you know, but we know people do perish. But anyways, that's besides the point. I'm not going to get into a debate over Scott's salvation. That's between him and God. But as an atheist, when he wrote this, it was incredible to me that he wrote this, because I did believe this, but I believed it in a different wording, a theological kind of concept. Scott wrote, though, that affirmations work. And an affirmation is saying something like, I will be successful in this, blah, blah, blah. I will be a strong person, or I will be an in-shape person. Pick your desire of what you want to be. Pick who you want to be as you advance in career and age and everything. And put it all around you and believe it and start speaking it as if it'll come true. Scott wrote, his book is fantastic. One of the reasons I love his book is because he talks about all the crappy jobs he worked and how terrible they were. He was in banking and all this tech and all this stuff, and it just kept failing and he hated it. All he wanted to do was be a cartoonist. And every day going through all this stuff and his wild life, he wrote his affirmations out, and he always told himself, I'm going to be a famous cartoonist. And he kept saying it over and over again. Well, he applied this to other aspects of his life. Scott had a condition, the condition RFK has with his voice that makes his voice, we're trying to get rid of the vaccines. How he talks like that. Scott had that condition, and it's incurable in the doctors. But guess what? Scott cured his, and he did it through affirmations and other stuff. Just never stopped believing that he could. So affirmations work, and it was fascinating to have him break it down. But he says, repeat clear, specific ones daily to prime your brain. In other words, once your brain believes something, it will actually start creating that for you. Isn't that incredible? And this is sociologically proven as well. It's called self-fulfilling prophecies. It's a proven thing. So Scott did, I will become a famous cartoonist 15 times a day. Passion follows success, not the other way around. This is fantastic advice, especially to young people. Don't follow your passion. Build skills and energy. Success will create passion. Chasing passion without leverage almost always flops. What is that? The advice to kids, and it's not completely bad, especially the heart behind it's right, but it's go after your dreams. You can do anything. That in itself is not wrong. What's wrong is saying you can do everything without the hard work. You can do everything, anything you want. Just go for it right now. No, it's like the mindset of build, start growing, get your skills, go to work. It's like Robert Kiyosaki says, don't go to work for a paycheck, go to work to learn, to grow, and then grow into something bigger and better. Well, Scott's saying the same thing, but he words it so well that the more success you get, your passions open up and your ability to pursue those open up as well. And Win Bigley talks about persuasion trumping facts in a world of cognitive bias, that people always decide emotionally first. I learned this first from Scott. And then once it's one of those things that once you hear it, you're like, well, of course, we all like to think we're logical beings, and we don't ever make logical decisions, but most of our logic is usually spent telling ourselves or validating ourselves what we already want to believe. Over time, people become more logical, especially if they're open to real information. But, we get so frustrated sometimes at people not seeing what we see, especially politically or what's happening in the world. It's because they're thinking emotionally. And it takes skill and effort to back out of that. And here's the deal. Even once you first see something that you can't deny that goes against your innate belief, well, your emotions still aren't going to let you believe it. It has to be presented to you over and over again, because eventually it has to get from the mind to the heart for somebody to fully change and believe. And so, yes, in the moment, we always make our decisions emotionally. People decide emotionally first, then rationalize. This is why a lot of what Trump says, Trump doesn't focus on being super factual all the time. He just wants to get stuff out there. Talks about the key techniques, which is it's so good. It's in the book. I don't have time to break them all down, but doing linguistic kill shots, which are memorable, visible phrases, pacing and leading, matching crowd energy and guiding it, 2 ways to win, no ways to lose, exaggeration for directional truth. Talent stack for influence, which we've already talked about, talent stack, but combine credibility, humor, thick skin, high energy, and pattern spotting. This is in regards to Trump, but it works for everybody. And then reality is subjective. We all live in personal movies. Persuasion edits the script. And then on Reframe Your Brain, which is his last book, it's all about thinking. And, you know, one of the things I believe in the most is reframing your brain. And in fact, in the Bible, one of my favorite verses is Romans 12:2, which is why I would have loved to have a discussion with Scott on faith. I know at the end, he says he didn't want to take the risk, and so he accepted Jesus into his heart, or he accepted Jesus as the Lord and Savior. And but I would have loved during his life to talk to Scott, and I'm just this is one of the things that really saddens me sometimes as someone who understands Christianity, understands the Bible in a way that skeptical people can understand it. I can point to answer their questions. It's not hard for me. That's what studying the Bible for 25 years gets you. But it's like I could have pointed to him where your brain, he was so about reframing your brain and unlearning things and relearning and looking at the world a different way. And Romans 12:2, one of my favorite verses, literally says, "Be transformed, therefore, by the renewing of your mind." In other words, if you change your mind, if you start focusing on the right things, if you start getting good beliefs from your brain to your heart, like you literally start believing the right things, your life changes. And your mind changes, and it starts with your mind. And Scott would have loved that. He would have loved that. And I wish I could have just given him a different perspective on it, that, because the problem I see so many times, people like Scott, they're so brilliant and they're so on the right track. And then they meet people of faith who just don't understand what they're talking about. And people like Scott can run circles around them. But the thing is, the Bible and faith, like the Christian faith, it stands up to all of the great minds in world history. That's why it's never going away. And that's why it keeps spreading. It can't be destroyed. It fits with the genius of everybody. No, it can't be undone with logic. But you need the right mind to do that. And I would have loved to have those conversations with Scott and maybe open his mind even sooner. And I wonder what would have happened then if he'd lived with faith versus, only finding it at the end. But this stuff like Reframe Your Brain, which would be, like Romans 12:2, renewing of your mind. It says the brain is programmable like software. Reframes are interface. Simple word swaps change how you feel and act. It's 100% true. I've practiced this on myself. I used to really struggle with depression a lot. And it's because like the emotion would come in and I would have to work through it. And sometimes I would just stay there. And now it's amazing because of the tools I've learned from Scott and a few others, but starting with Scott, I've learned how I can just say something now. I can literally just speak out a couple phrases, depending on what I'm feeling at the time that might be getting me down. And it's like as soon as I utter the words, it lifts, it's gone, just because I entered those words into my mind. So it's incredible. It's true. But words do change how you feel and act. He says they don't need to be true or logical, just effective. Examples: hit hard, manage energy, not time. Success comes from how many people you know, not who. In other words, network, meet as many people as possible. And then success can come from that. Critics are mascots. They prove you're in the game. In other words, critics are a good thing. If you're not being criticized, you're not having an impact. And he said alcohol is poison, and he would always say that to people who are trying to quit. Just start saying every day alcohol is poison, and eventually your body is going to not want it at all. Core rules for creating reframes: make them short, repeatable, emotional, possible, because we are emotional beings. For happiness, success, reframe critics as proof of impact, failure as tuition. In other words, it's the price you pay. Or big changes as a small next step, stoic-ish but practical, rewire defaults for better defaults. So again, just just great stuff. This is the kind of stuff, these are the things that really changed my life from Scott. And then there's just other intricacies in these small stuff as he explained them. I wanted to read a quick part from this book in the beginning, just the way he wrote it. But it's at the beginning of how to fail at everything, almost everything, and still win big. And he wrote this book tease, and it's just a couple things in a row in an outline. But it says, number 1, goals are for losers. I love that. What a reframe, especially here at the beginning of the year. Goals are for losers. In other words, your New Year's resolutions are for losers if it's a goal. But if it's a system, which is building a new habit, that's how you win. But the goal itself, like just setting a goal, is going to set you up for failure. Another thing is every skill you acquire doubles your odds of success. Think about that. Every time you acquire a new skill, your odds of success double. I love that so much. Happiness is health plus freedom. That's kind of hard to argue with. And then simplicity transforms ordinary into amazing. This is one of his big things. He's like, if you want to be persuasive, be simple. If you want to write and get across, be simple. And it is. It's like I used to think like to be smart was to be really like convoluted and intricate. But the truth is, it's like, and even Einstein said this, but the proof of genius is actually being able to explain something very complex to a 5th grader. So simplicity is what's transformative, which I love. As I finish up just my saying goodbye to Scott here, I did want to share his favorite Dilbert comic. This is according to Business Insider, this was Scott Adams' favorite Dilbert of all time. And just because it's funny, and I want to laugh what Scott laughed at in memory of him. But he says, my boss says we need some Unix programmers. I think we need Unix, not Unix, and I already know Unix. And then the boss says, if the company nurse drops by, tell her I said, never mind. I love it. Just good stuff right there. So, listen, guys, I'm almost done here. I'm going to, at the end here, I'm going to leave you with one last clip from Scott before I go. And that'll be my sign off for the night. But before I do that, just want to stop. And, I see people writing in the chat. D6 wrote, people who stay focused, make sure to do the little things win because most others won't. I mean, that's 100% true. And that's a system. That would be a system. Strayhorn says, when you say have to do something, it's burdensome. Say get to do something, instant motivation, 100%. That's a great word reframe, Johnny. And thank you for sharing that. D6 says, smartest people take complicated things, make them simple. Dumbest take simple things, make them complicated. Oh yeah. Well, we see that all the time, don't we? In the show I do and the stuff I criticize. David with the super chat. Thank you so much for that, David, with the $10 super chat. Really appreciate it. Really do. It says Trump's confidence comes from Norman Vincent Peale's Trump's youth minister, power of positive thinking. Scott Adams taught the same mindset. Extreme belief in persuasion minus religion. Yeah, absolutely. You're 100% right, David. Thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. You're 100% right. And look what it's got Trump. I had a rant last week about blackpilling, and I clipped that rant and I put it on as a separate video just so people could just watch that one 10-minute rant. And what I mean, when I say blackpilling, it's being negative. It's believing that we don't have hope. Well, I got to tell you, it's hope that got us Trump. It's hope that got us a miracle that's saving our country and moving us forward. And you can't, if you don't have hope when things are hard, you just don't you don't really know what hope is, because real hope has to be tested and tried to be real. If you're only feeling hope when things are easy and good, when you're only being positive when things are easy and good, that's not hope. That's fair weather rolling, man. That's just like, hey, things are good, I feel good. That's emotional leading. That takes no skill, it takes no effort, it takes no growth. And that Norm Peele, I mean, I think of that, how much it's impacted Trump. When do you ever hear Trump being negative, unless he's just calling somebody a name? That's a nasty New York fighter coming out, but that's not being negative about circumstances or the future, his own career, or the future for America. Never, not once. And look what it's gotten him. Built a real estate empire against all odds. I mean, they thought he was a joke in New York, and look, he outdid them all. Thought he was a joke as a politician, becomes president twice. Second president ever to leave, come back in a later term. I mean, that's history. Him and Garfield, the only two. Trump is making history every day, and it's because he wouldn't be able to do it without his mindset. Think of what the man went through. How many people would that break? Think about that. Think about Scott and his career being ruined. Well, he found a new career, second career afterwards, in talking to MAGA, but all his speeches canceled. He was getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year speaking fees. Many newspapers canceled Dilbert, lost tons of money there, lost book deals. I mean, the guy gave up a very, very lucrative, as a star. He was a famous star because of Dilbert, and gave that up, was shunned by all the people who made him famous there. And he became famous in another way. He became one of the fathers of MAGA, to be honest with you. He really did. One of the people we went to for answers, one of the people we went to for understanding, one of the people reaching hundreds of thousands, helping them frame everything in a great way. Honestly, I part of his legacy is myself. If I was going to still do this show, even if I hadn't known of Scott, I definitely would be different. I'd be doing it differently. He's impacted my life so much. It's my faith has impacted my life more than anything else, and that's my relationship with God, my learning from the Bible, teachers who've taught me in that, and then my father, as he impacted me more than any other living human. And then there's a couple mentors I studied under in church and in school that I was able to learn so much from, and they changed my life. And then honestly, I think number 5 on that list, 6 on that list in my entire life would be Scott. And so this is why I'm doing this show tonight. That's how much he meant to me, and how much I credit him for where I'm at and where I'm going in my life. And so, I hope Scott knows that. I do. It's one of the sadnesses of my life. I never get to meet him face to face. It's just, and we all have that, and I hope we all have that. We all should be learning from somebody who's further down the road in something than we are. And it doesn't mean you got to have an emotional connection, but I think it's, if you don't have somebody who matters to you in that way, I wonder how much you can grow. I really do. I think we all have to be a little vulnerable in that. And honestly, it is a little weird for me. He's the one person I never met in person that meant that much to me. And it's just a weird thing, but yeah, it's getting us this far. I mean, and I'm never going to change. Once you find that this stuff works, this way of thinking, this way of approaching life, and how much easier it is, how much less, because it diverts your focus. And once you divert your focus and you really understand how people think, it just makes everything easier. and no matter how bad things get or how hard things get, even during the Biden years, man, I like after the election, like, don't get me wrong, it hurt 2020 and I was upset and I was worried, but I never lost hope. I always knew better things were coming. And I just knew I was going to have to wait for them. And I didn't know how bad it'd get before they came. But look where we are now. Look at the winning we're doing now. Look at it's incredible. But it was people like Scott that got me through that time easier. His teachings and what I learned from him. And so, I don't know if there's anybody else who could pass away anymore that I would devote an entire show to, except for probably Trump himself at this point. But yeah, Scott, you up wherever you are, man, looking down on us, from heaven, I thank you. I mean, thank you so much. Crap, man. I thought I was past this. I'm gonna miss him. Really gonna miss him. Jeez, he's sorry, guys. We lost one of the good ones. And one of the reasons we're here, guys, a lot of good people are giving up a lot so we can have our country back, so we can have a better future and give one to our kids. Charlie, obviously, but it's taken so violently, but Scott gave a lot in another way. And I'm so grateful to him. I am. We wouldn't be here without people like him. And we're so blessed. We're so blessed. Some people were willing to be strong. Be strong against it all, And I'm just so glad I got to be impacted by him while he was living, even from afar. So anyways, wow. Okay. Whew. Did not expect that. That just came out of nowhere, guys. Sorry. If you guys didn't think I really love Scott, now you know. It's deep. But anyways, I'm going to leave you guys with a message from Scott before we go. And you guys have a blessed night. And, just know things are getting so much better. And just if you take a moment today and just be thankful, be grateful. That's it. That's if nothing else, just be grateful for all the people who've gotten us here and are going to continue to take us further, because there's a lot of sacrifice, but a lot of I don't know, I just appreciate so much what some people are doing for us. So anyways, God bless you guys. Let me leave you with this from Scott, because I think it's best to have from his words. So God bless you guys.
Let me give you a specific thank you. I hope you're aware that your existence and the love and attention that you give me is absolutely irreplaceable. And I'm very blessed. And I appreciate you more than you could ever know. So if it seems like I'm acting selfishly sometimes, well, maybe I am, because I enjoy this experience of being useful if I can, more than anything I like. So thank you, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Let me give you a specific thank you.